Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you could join me today. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're enjoying the beginning of summer. I always talk about the seasons on my channel. I don't know why I do that, but not everybody has the same seasons as we do in the United States. A lot of my viewers are from Australia, some are from Africa, some are from Europe, but wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a good time and enjoying yourself. And if you'd like to make jewelry, you're in the right place. I'm going to be showing you how to make that gorgeous necklace that you saw in the introduction. I used the beads from Sam's Bead Box for the month of June. The name of the box was Summer of Fun. And it was funny, as I was designing the necklace, it brought back all kinds of memories because we never had summer camp in Australia. When I was growing up, my summers consisted of just hanging out with my neighbors, going to the local pool, going to the beach. The only knowledge I have of summer camp is what I learned when my two boys went when they were little. But other than that, I really don't have much experience at all with summer camp. But I can only imagine what wonderful memories everybody has having grown up here in the United States. And Sam certainly captured some of those memories in that beautiful bead box that he put together, him and Rachel. I was so impressed with all of the colors and the selection of beads. And when I first took a look, I got so much inspiration. It was unbelievable. But anyway, guys, if you're not familiar with Sam's Bead Box, I'll leave a link down below so you can go check it out. And if you don't subscribe to that box or you don't have any beads left over, don't worry. I'll list all of the materials down below in the description section of this video. I'm also going to list some timestamps if you want to skip forward to any portion of the video. And let me remind you that if you haven't subscribed, please think about doing so because it really does help my channel and it helps me as a content creator to stay motivated to create more videos for you. And if you want to receive YouTube notifications every time I release a video, don't forget to hit that notification bell. So anyway, I don't want to make this video any longer than it should be, so let's go ahead, turn the camera around and we'll get started. And here we have Sam's Bead Box for the month of June. As you can see, the name of the box is Summer of Fun. Let's go ahead and select the beads. So what inspired the necklace was this gorgeous turquoise colored heart focal. It has a bursting heart focal design on the front and back of it. Let me pull it out. It measures 21 millimeters across and I think it's about, I would say 5 to 6 millimeters thick. So we're going to use this as part of the pendant. We're also going to use one of these hibiscus flower beads. And I kind of want to use this one because it has a nice even mix of yellow and red. We're going to be using this one on the pendant as well. It measures 14 millimeters across and I think it's about 6 millimeters thick. We're going to be using these gorgeous diagonally drilled cube beads. The color is amber topaz and they measure 8.5 millimeters across. We're going to be using some of these gorgeous aster flower coin beads. As you can see, they're turquoise in color and they have a bronze wash. They measure 12 millimeters across. And of course, I need to use these beautiful pressed flower beads. When I first saw these, I knew I had to use them. These are so gorgeous and they really inspired me. We're going to use all 5 of them. They measure 12 by 13.5 millimeters. And as you can see, they're varied in color, so yours may be different, but I'm pretty sure your colors will probably work with this design as well. We're going to be using these faceted rondelle beads in the color Fiery Red. They measure 6 by 8 millimeters. And we're also going to use the blue ones to go along with them. These are a little bit bigger. These measure 6 by 8.5 millimeters. And the color is aqua. We're going to be using these beautiful long teardrop shaped beads. These are brio beads. The color is Summer Joy and these measure 7 by 14 millimeters. I love these ladybugs. I needed to use these for sure in this necklace. When I saw these, I knew I was going to use them. These are so adorable. They measure 10 by 13.5 millimeters. And these would actually make great earrings. I don't know if we'll have time to make earrings or not, but if we do, I'm definitely going to be using them. And there's one more thing we're going to be using. We're going to be using these beautiful disc beads or saucer beads. The color is red and they measure 2 by 5 millimeters. And that's it from this box. Now for the strands of the necklace, I'm going to be using 20 gauge wire. I like 20 gauge because it's not as chunky as 18 gauge and it's relatively strong. We're going to be doing simple loops for the beaded components, and this is the wire that I prefer to use for simple loops. Now for a portion of the pendant, I'm going to be using 22 gauge wire because I want to do some wrap loops, and the reason is that I'm going to be hanging some dangles and I don't want the dangles accidentally falling off. So the best thing to do when you're hanging dangles is to do a wrapped loop, and 22 gauge is good for that. Now for the actual drops that we're going to be wrapping, we're going to use 26 gauge. And I'll explain later on why we're using such thin gauge wire. You could actually use 24 gauge if you wanted to, but I prefer using 26 gauge because it gives me a much smaller and tighter looking wrap. And I think I forgot to mention, guys, that this is in an antique copper color and it is tarnish resistant. I'm not particular about the brand. This is by Beadsmith, but you can use any brand as long as it's tarnish resistant. So the first thing we're going to work on is the pendant, and these are the beads that we're going to be using for the pendant. As you can see, we're going to have the heart at the top, the hibiscus in the middle, and the 3 drops below. Let's work on these 2 first. We'll be using 22 gauge wire. So let's cut off a piece for the heart. It's a good idea to straighten your wire before you cut it off the spool. I'm going to cut myself a 3.5 inch piece for the heart and a 3 inch piece for the hibiscus flower. Let's go ahead and work on the heart first. So what I normally do is place the piece in the middle of the wire and estimate where it is that I'm going to wrap, and I just remembered that I'm missing a bead. I need one of these Czech glass faceted beads at the top of the heart. These are the ones that are 6 by 8 millimeters and they're in a fiery red color. Once you figure out where the bead is going to go, you're going to use some round nose pliers and you're going to grab the wire somewhere about where the top of the beads are going to go. So in this case, we're going to have the heart and the rondelle in this space here. And now we're going to kink the wire away from us, like this. I'm going to switch to this portion of my wire now, and I'm going to slide my pliers as far down as I can because I want this loop to be relatively big. Now these are Lindstrom pliers, guys, so don't use these as reference because yours may be different. Lindstrom pliers have very skinny barrels, but my loop is going to be quite big. So this is what you should have. And now you're going to grab this short end and you're going to wrap it around the nose of your pliers like this. And then I'm going to flip my pliers around and I'm going to take that short tail again and wrap it towards the back like this. Remove the pliers and this is what you should have. Now we're going to do some wraps, and I'm going to grab my loop with these pliers. These are actually crimping pliers, but I like using them because they have very skinny tips. So I'm simply going to grab the loop like this. And now with another set of pliers, these are needle nose pliers, I'm going to grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. You can do as many wraps as you want. I don't like to have a lot of wraps, so I usually only do about 2, maybe 2.5. Now using the flush side of your cutters, you're going to come in here really close and cut off the excess. Just like that. If you'll notice, there's a little end right there that you need to tuck in. So you can either hold that loop with your fingers or hold it with your pliers like this. And then with another set of pliers, you're going to come in here and tuck that little tail in. So this is what you should have. Let's go ahead and thread the beads on. We're going to thread on the rondelle and then the heart shape like this. So now we're going to form another loop at the bottom end. Once again, you're going to grab the wire with your round nose pliers, line up the bottom loop because you want both loops to go in the same direction. Kink your wire away from you. Switch to this portion of the nose of your pliers. Take the tail, wrap it around the nose, flip the pliers around. Now at this point, if you want your loop to be a little bit closer to your bead, you can turn the pliers towards you slightly like this, and then take the tail and wrap it around to the back. So this is what you should have. We're going to go ahead and close this loop now with some wraps. So once again, I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers. I'm going to grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. And now I'm going to cut off the excess. And if you see anything sticking out, make sure you tuck it in. So this is what you should have. I purposely made the top loop a little bit bigger because I'm going to be attaching the strands to it. The bottom loop can be smaller because I'm going to be attaching the hibiscus flower. So let's go ahead and work on the hibiscus flower. Once again, I'm going to grab the wire where I think the bead is going to go at the top of it. I'm going to kink the wire away from me, switch to this portion of my barrels, take the tail, wrap it around, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap towards the back. So this is what you should have. And now before we do any wraps, we're going to slide this open loop into the closed loop of this pendant, like this. And now I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers and grab the tail with my other pliers and do a couple of wraps. Cut off the excess. Tuck in the little end if you see one. Let's go ahead and thread the bead on now. And once again, you're going to grab the wire at the top of the bead like this. Line up the bottom loop, kink it away from you, switch to this portion of your pliers, wrap the tail around, flip the pliers around, and continue to wrap to the back. Now I'm not going to close this loop because I'm going to be attaching these drops to it, so I'm going to leave it open and we'll do the wraps later on. So let's go ahead and put this off to the side for now. Now for these drops, I'm going to be using thinner gauge. I'm going to be using the 26 gauge wire. And I like to give myself a generous amount for each one. So I'm going to cut myself 3 4-inch pieces, maybe 4.5. If you're new, I recommend that you cut yourself longer pieces because it's a lot easier to work with wire when you have enough versus not enough. Obviously, if you're advanced, you could probably get away with less. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to thread the wire through the bead like this, leaving ourselves about 1.5 inches on this side. And now we're going to take the wire and we're going to bend it across the top like this so that they cross. As you can see, there's still a little bit of space above the bead before the wires cross. So now we're going to straighten this piece of wire out by using some pliers. I'm simply going to grab it like this and kink it so that it's pointing straight up. And this one's actually going to point this way. And once again, I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers just like this. And with another set, I'm going to take the short tail and wrap it around the longer piece of wire a couple of times, maybe 3 times. And now I'm going to cut off the excess. And even though it's small, I am going to tuck the little end in. So this is what you should have. And now I'm going to grab the wire with the tip of my round nose pliers right at the top of where the wraps are, like this. Kink the wire away from me. Switch to this portion of my pliers. Take the tail and wrap it around the nose of the pliers like this. Flip my pliers around and continue to wrap that tail towards the back. So this is what you should have, something like this. Now we're going to go ahead and close this one with some wraps. So once again, I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers, grab the tail, and now I'm going to do some wraps right on top of the wraps that I created. And because the wire is thin gauge, it really doesn't matter if you go right over the top. And I'm actually going to take the wraps quite a ways down, but I'm still leaving a little bit of space for the bead to move around. Let me go ahead and snip off the excess. And you definitely want to tuck in any little sharp end that's sticking out. You don't want anything sticking out. So this is what you should have. It's not a perfect wrap, but it's really difficult to get a perfect wrap when you're wrapping on top of another wrap. but I don't mind having a chunky wrap like this. I think it's a nice effect. Let's go ahead and work on these two now. Let me move this one over here. Once again, you're going to thread the wire through the hole of the bead like this, leaving yourself about 1.5 inches. Bend both ends up so that they cross at the top of the bead. Like this. Kink the long one so that it's pointing straight ahead. Kink the short one so that it's pointing out to the side. Let me straighten out my wire a little bit. So this is what you should have. And now I'm going to grab to the left of where the wires are crossing, take the tail and do a couple of wraps. Cut off the excess. And now I'm going to tuck in the little end. Once again, I'm going to grab the wire at the top of the wraps, kink it away from me, switch to this portion of my pliers, take the tail, wrap it around the nose of my pliers, flip my pliers around, and continue to wrap to the back. Now before I do any wraps, I'm going to attach a piece of chain to this because I want it to hang a little bit lower than this one. And I'm not going to need very much chain. These are very small links, as you can see, and I'm actually going to use this chain to do a dainty necklace later on. But I'm only going to cut off 2 links for this drop, and the reason I'm using this chain is because the links are closed links. They don't have any cuts at all. So that means there's no chance for the dangle to fall out. So I'm going to go ahead and thread it on like this. I know they're kind of small and they're hard to see, but I'm going to take them now and slide them into the loop like this. And I'll do the same thing. I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers, grab the tail and do some wraps. And once again, I'm taking that wire all the way down. And now I'm going to cut off the excess. Tuck in the little end. And this is what you should have. And this gives you some idea of how it's going to hang next to this one. And now we're going to work on this one. And I have no idea why I cut myself 4 pieces of wire because I really only needed 3. So once again, we're going to thread the wire through the hole of the bead. And once again, I'd like to attach a piece of chain. Now this one's only going to have 1 link. I know it sounds silly, but this one little link is going to make a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and thread it through into the open loop. It's a little challenging because it's a tiny link. And I'm going to do the same thing now. I'm going to close this loop with some wraps. Cut off the excess. Tuck in the little end. So here are my 3 dangles. And now we're going to thread them onto this pendant. We're simply going to slide them into the open loop. So let me do this one first. And now the one with the 2 links. And the one without the links. Now before you do your wraps, you want to check them to make sure they're hanging just the way you want them. And mine are hanging just right, so I'm going to go ahead and do my wraps here. So let me grab the loop with my skinny pliers, grab the tail and do my wraps. Let me go ahead and cut off the excess, tuck in the little end, and here's my beautiful pendant. Don't you love it? It's so cute. I love the colors and I just think it's so whimsical and adorable. Let's go ahead and work on the strands now. So here are the beads that we're going to be using for the strands. And I've actually done some sketches and experimented with these beads before, so I kind of know what I'm doing. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to have two kinds of beaded components. We're going to have one that has the clear crystal and another one that has the opaque fancy beads. And the strands are going to look like they're randomly put together, but there's actually a little bit of structure to them. So basically what I'm going to do is keep the crystals in a certain order. Let me show you how we're going to do it. Let me just move them down so we have a little bit of room to work. So what I'm going to do first is lay out the glass beads. I'm going to start with the amber cube right there. The next one's going to be a blue bead. And then the next one will be a red one. And now I'm going to repeat the same pattern. So amber, blue, red, and then amber at the end. Let me space them out a little bit. So this is the first strand, and I'm laying it out horizontally so you can see better. The pendant's actually going to be at this end and the clasp at that end. So we have these crystal beads in this order, and now we're going to arrange the fancy beads in the spaces. And I'm not following any specific order for that. I'm just going to randomly put them down, but I am going to try to space out the colors evenly. So let's go ahead and put a red pressed flower bead here. And I think my next bead is going to be one of these turquoise colored beads. And now I think I'm going to put this mustard colored bead there. And now a ladybug in this space here. Another one of these coin beads in between these two. And I'm going to finish with a yellow bead right there. Actually, I've changed my mind. Let me put a blue bead there. So here's my first strand. Let me move these down a little bit. I think I'll start with a blue bead there. And now a red one, amber, and I'm going to repeat the same pattern. So blue, red, amber, and then blue. And now I need to put the fancy beads in between. So let me start with one of these turquoise colored beads there. And this blue one next. Let me put a ladybug right there. This other turquoise bead next. And now this yellow bead and the ladybug. So I'm pretty happy with how this looks. It still looks pretty random, even though the crystal beads are all in a specific order. Now you do need to decide which way you want the ladybugs to point. It's up to you how you want them to point. Since this is random, it really doesn't matter which way they're pointing. They can point up or they can point down, or a combination of the two. And I've actually changed my mind. I think I'm going to put the pendant at this end and the clasp at that end. And I personally like my ladybugs to point up, so I'm going to turn this one this way. So now all we have to do is put them on wire. I'm going to be using my 20 gauge wire. And again, you want to straighten your wire before you remove it from the spool. Now you're not going to need very long pieces this time. 2.5 inches would be sufficient. Because we're going to be doing some simple loops, so we don't need as much wire for simple loops. Now obviously I'm going to be needing more wire than this, but I wanted to get started. So let me show you how we're going to do this. If you have an end that's pointed like this, it's a good idea to trim it. So I'm going to use the flush side of my cutters, and I'm simply going to trim it like this so that it's nice and flat on the top. Now you're going to have to decide how big you want your loops. I usually like to kink my wire at about 3/8 of an inch, and that gives me a medium-sized loop, something like this. But it all depends on how big you want your loops and what kind of round nose pliers you're going to be using. You're going to have to figure that out, guys. The only thing I can do is give you some guidelines, but ultimately it's up to you. So now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to grab the wire like this so that it's flush. You want that piece to be flush up against the barrel of your pliers. And now we're simply going to loop it because we want that loop to close. Let me give you a close-up. We're going to work with the fancy beads first, and then I'll show you how to do the crystal beads. So now we're going to thread on the ladybug like this. I'm going to grab the wire at the top of the bead, line up the bottom loop, and then I'm going to kink it away. Cut off the excess, leaving yourself 3/8 of an inch. Grab the end with your pliers so that it's flush, and loop it. Make sure you close it nicely. So this is what you should have. Now you do want your loops to line up, so Grab them with 2 sets of pliers like this, line them up, and here's my first beaded component. Now the crystal beads are going to be a little different. We're going to be using these spacer beads, the saucer spacer beads. So once again, let's grab a piece of wire. Using your flat nose pliers, you're going to kink it at 3/8 of an inch. Grab it with your round nose pliers, loop it, make sure it's closed, like this. And now we're going to thread on a spacer bead, the crystal bead, and another spacer bead, like this. Grab the wire with your flat nose pliers, line up the bottom loop, kink it, snip off the excess, leaving 3/8 of an inch. Grab it with your round nose pliers, loop it. Once again, you want to make sure you close your loop well. And now we're going to grab both loops with some pliers, line them up. So here's my other component. So that's basically how we're going to do all of them. The fancy beads are going to be by themselves. The crystal beads are going to have a red saucer spacer on each end. And I'm going to do all of them the exact same way. So to save time, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the film, and I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I put each one of these beads on wire. I think this is the order in which I had them originally. I may have shifted something around, I'm not sure. But now all we have to do is connect them, and that's the easy part. So we're simply going to take a beaded component. We're going to open up the loop like this. Take the next one, connect it, close up the loop. You do want to make sure you close your loops really well. And now we're going to open up this loop, connect the next beaded component, close it up, open up the next loop, connect the next one, and close it up. And this is how I'm going to connect all of them. So let me go ahead and speed up the camera, and I'll meet you back. As you can see, I've linked all of them, and don't they look adorable? This necklace is going to be so cute. Let me show you the bottom of the strands. So now all we have to do is connect the pendant, and that's very easy. We're simply going to open up this loop, connect it to the loop of the pendant, make sure we close it really well, and then we'll open up this loop, connect it to the loop of the pendant, and close it up. So now we've connected the pendant. How cute is that? Let's go ahead and connect the clasp. These are 6mm jump rings. And we're simply going to open it up, hook it onto the strand like this, hook on the clasp, close it up. And these are very strong jump rings. I think these are 19 gauge. But what I like about these is that they close really well. Let's go ahead and open up this one. Feed it through the loop, and we're just going to have the jump ring at this end. So this necklace is finished. And I'm absolutely in love with this necklace, guys. It is so adorable. Let me show you the bottom. There's the bottom. And there's the top. It's hard to get the whole thing in frame. But let me move it up so you can see the pendant. I really love that. I love how it hangs. I believe the necklace is 20 inches long. It's pretty long, but you can make it whatever length you want. Obviously, you just have to use less components. It's up to you, or you can make it longer. There are plenty of beads in June's box to make a longer necklace if you want to. So along with this necklace, we're also going to make some earrings, very simple earrings. And I already have one made, as you can see. It's a ladybug with one of the aster flower coin beads. But you can use any of the components to make your earrings. It's completely up to you. And it's very easy. All we have to do is thread a head pin in through the ladybug. And this is a flat head pin, just like that. And I am going to do a wrap loop with this one, even though this head pin is kind of tough. So I'm simply going to do a couple of wraps like I always do. And now I'm going to cut off the excess. And now I'm going to tuck in the little end. I have a piece of 20 gauge wire. And I'm simply going to kink it at 3/8 of an inch like I've been doing. Form a loop. There's my spacer bead and there's my coin bead. I did use one of these 6mm beads from this bag. These are the faceted rounds in the honey amber color. So I'm simply going to thread on the spacer bead and then the coin bead and then the round bead at the top like this. Line up the bottom loop, kink it, cut off the excess wire at 3/8 of an inch. And now I'm going to form a loop. Let me open it up. I have a stainless steel ear wire hook. I like to use stainless steel just because I know a lot of people are sensitive to metals. And even though it's not copper, it's just a lot safer to use and it doesn't irritate the skin as much. So now let me go ahead and open up this loop. Connect the ladybug. Close it up. So here's an adorable pair of earrings. And like I said, guys, you can use any one of these components to make your earrings. It's completely up to you. Now to go along with this, I do have another necklace that I'm going to make. It's a very simple dainty necklace. And I'm going to use one of these teardrop shaped beads. I'm also going to use some dainty chain. And these lengths, I think they measure about 2.5mm. They're not very big at all. This is cable chain. And as you can see, it's pretty dainty. And this piece measures 16 inches, but again, you can make it as long as you want. I have my 26 gauge wire, and this time I'm going to cut myself a really long piece. I'm going to cut myself a 7-inch piece because I'm going to do a different kind of wrap at the top of the bead. I know it sounds like a lot, but trust me, you're going to need this much wire. So once again, we're going to thread the wire through the hole of the bead like this, and we're going to leave ourselves about 1.5 inches to the left. We're going to bend the wire upward and then cross it at the top of the bead, just like we did before. And once again, I'm going to kink the long piece of wire so that it's pointing straight up. And this one, I'm going to kink so that it's pointing out to the side. Let me straighten it out so you can see better. So this is what you want. And again, you want to grab the wire to the left of where they cross, like this. I'm going to make 2 wraps with this piece. Cut off the excess. Tuck in the little end. Grab the wire at the top of the wrap, like this. Kink it away. Switch to this portion of my pliers. Take the tail, wrap it around the nose of the pliers, flip the pliers around, and continue to wrap to the back. Remove my pliers, And now we're going to attach it to the chain before we do any wraps. We need to find the center of the chain. I like to use a head pin to find the center. You simply thread your head pin through the first link and then again through the last link. And this is an easy way to find the center. So there's my center link right there. And now we're going to connect this piece to that link. Let me remove the head pin, feed my wire through the link like this, slide it into the loop like that, grab the loop with some pliers, take the long end now, and you're going to start wrapping. And you do want to take your time when you do this. This is going to be a little bit different than what we did before. I'm going to just wrap it around very slowly and as neatly as I can. Going all the way down. Straighten out your bead. I'm actually going to wrap on top of the bead now. I think this is called a hat wrap or a cap wrap. You definitely want to take your time. It takes practice to do this. So this is what we have so far. I don't want to go down too far because I don't want to cover up the nice bead. So now what I'm going to do is take it up, back up to the top of the wrap. So I'm simply going to wrap it around diagonally like this, and I'm using my fingers this time. I'm going to come all the way up here like this. And now I'm going to fill in this little space here with some wraps. And you can use your pliers or you can just use your fingers. Whatever's the easiest. So this is what we have so far. It's not perfect, but it'll do. Let me cut off the excess. And now you definitely want to try to squeeze that little end into the wrap somehow. And if your wraps are a little wonky, you can straighten them out a little bit if you want to, but you do want to be gentle because you don't want to distort the wraps. You want to have that nice cone effect. Sometimes I use my nylon coated pliers for this. But this is what you should have, something like this. As you can see, we have that little swoop going upward. So this is a minimalist necklace. You could wear it by itself or you could wear it with this necklace. Once again, I have my two 6mm jump rings and a lobster claw clasp. I'm simply going to open up this jump ring now. And now I'm going to hook it onto the link of the chain. Hook on the clasp. Close it up. And on the other side, we just have the jump ring. You could probably use smaller jump rings. I just like to use large ones because they're so much easier to put on. But with this kind of chain, you could definitely get away with a 5mm or even a 4mm jump ring. Let me connect the clasp and then I'll arrange everything on my board so you can see the whole thing. So here's the full set. I know it doesn't fit within the frame. Let me move the camera down so you can see the bottom of the necklace. Don't you love that pendant? I love that heart focal. It's so gorgeous. And here's the top of the necklace. I think my favorite are these ladybugs. I love these ladybugs. They're so adorable. They definitely give the piece a very whimsical look. What I really want to do, guys, is to put this on and show you what it looks like. I can't wait to show you. So let me go ahead and put it on and I'll be right back. Yes, I do have the minimalist necklace on, but actually I could wear all three versions. I could wear the minimalist, I could wear the long one, or I could wear the two of them together. It all depends on the occasion and what I'm wearing that day. There are so many things to think about. You have to think about your neckline, you have to think about the colors you're wearing. But that's the kind of necklace that you could actually wear with something very neutral, like either white or even a black outfit, and it would look nice. So anyway, guys, if you have any feedback, please leave some comments down below if you have time. I'd love to hear about what you think of the necklaces and which one's your favorite. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.